You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today. All right. Like I said, we're back. Okay. Sorry, I pretty much missed the day, but I already lose my voice. But I've been hard at work and I just wanted to at least get 30 minutes out there. Like I said, we're going to keep this live stream thing going, keep this streak going. But I'm here, right? That's the whole thing. That was the whole deal. We got to have more consistency and, I guess now is better than never, right? So welcome in for those of you who are joining me late here. I know it's probably 9:02 for most of the people joining. It is 12:02 here on the East Coast because I'm just not really normal. I've come to realize that I'm just not very normal. My sleep schedule, what sleep schedule, and I'm just all over the place. So. All right, let's talk about it, okay? The Titans made some big moves today. They cut Taylor Lewan and Robert Woods, two moves that I have long predicted way before this on these shows. And we already talked about Robert Woods, or at least I did. It wasn't a live stream necessarily. It's a video I put out. It's doing well, so appreciate you guys supporting the channel, giving it a thumbs up. Really goes a long way. So again, really appreciate that. But what I mentioned with Robert Woods, basically I played, obviously fanboy, but I also played devil's advocate. I wanted to play both sides of the coin. And that's what I intend to do here with Taylor Lewan to kick off this live stream. I don't know how long we'll be streaming, so don't feel like we're about to get off. I mean, I am streaming right now, so we're going to, the show is going to go on. So, let's talk about it, a little bit about Taylor Lewan. I'll take questions, comments, concerns, etc. And it'll just be a regular JE Live, and I think, what you'll come to expect is all of these shows are going to have one base topic that we kick it off with. But it's a show starter. And if we continue talking about it, it goes on for 40 minutes, great. But, I mean, what does the thumbnail do? It's supposed to get your attention. But I'm not a fan of clickbait or anything like that. So while maybe I baited your click, I'm still going to be giving you the information that you want to hear. The topics that, I put out there, we will be talking about. So without further ado, Taylor Lewan, not wasting any more time. Let's talk about him, okay? This is a veteran presence who can come in. He can help the Rams. He doesn't count against any compensatory picks or anything like that. He doesn't hurt the formula because he is a free agent that was created via a transaction, right? His contract isn't up. They cut him. So because they cut him, that relinquishes any rights that team, aka the Titans, would have for getting, any compensatory picks for him. That also means that the Rams don't have to give up any compensatory picks in accordance. So essentially what that means is, in the past, Rams make a signing like Allen Robinson, for instance. When they go and they sign Robinson because he is a scheduled free agent, now the highest guy that they sign, that's, somewhat equal value, right, is going to get canceled out. So they sign Allen Robinson and they lose whoever, like Von Miller, they were supposed to get like a fifth. So Von Miller gets canceled out, or so-and-so gets canceled out, right? And so that is the big thing there, is that compensatory picks get canceled out. There's a formula. We don't know the exact formula. God forbid the NFL releases it. But the whole point is that the Rams have made these moves in the past. And it's why, if you are sitting here speculating, well, maybe this Taylor Lewan guy might actually be a Ram. Maybe this is possible. Well, guess what? It is possible. And here's why. Because the Rams make these moves. The Rams were on Eric Weddle's tail the moment he was released. They are so keen on using the compensatory picks to build through the draft. That is what they do. They use compensatory picks. They either trade them or they keep them. And that's how they, get more picks in certain, rounds, in the mid rounds or the bottom of the rounds. And they hit on them. And so that's the thing. That is what keeps this engine going. It's what allows them to do the F them picks, that whole thing. That is what keeps them going. So essentially what I'm saying here is that signing Taylor Lewan doesn't hurt what they're doing. Their circle of life, their way of life, how they get compensatory picks, they don't go crazy and re-sign guys. They let other teams overpay the guys they don't feel like they need to keep on the roster, and they get compensatory picks because of it. They are not going to lose any compensatory picks if they pick up Taylor Lewan. That's what I'm saying. When they lost Von Miller, they signed Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson cancels out a Von Miller compensatory pick, essentially. See what I'm saying? So that's kind of there. So they're not going to lose any compensation for signing Taylor Lewan. That's the first reason why you sign him. The second reason right now is that he is 31 years old. You could say it's old all you want, but at the end of the day, it's really not. They got Whitworth. I think he was 34, 35 years old. He ended up being there for 5-6 years, whatever. That's the thing, is that it's really not that old in the NFL, but he has had some interesting things in the past. Okay. You look at his career, he started off, he started 6 games, he played in 11. Then, he starts 15, he starts 16, he starts 15. Then, he starts 16, he starts 12. So he misses 4 games. The next year he misses 11 games. The next year he misses 4. And then the next year he misses, this past year, he misses 15. So recently, over the last 2 out of the last 3 years, Lewan has missed more than half the season. So that is a cause for concern. That's a real thing. Okay. And for an offensive line that dealt with a lot of injuries, maybe they're not about to jump into that, right? Maybe the team that just went through a lot is not about to jump into that. That's certainly possible. So let's talk about Taylor Lewan, right? 31 years old. He played 2 games last season. He's played 105 games over his career. This is a big body. You're talking a 6'7", 309 guy, really tall, but, kind of like Whitworth. The thing about Lewan is that he's going to give you that veteran presence. He's going to give you that mean streak. He's going to fight for your quarterback. He's got a nasty side to him on the football field. I liked him a lot coming out of Michigan, coming out of the draft. So this is definitely a guy that could make some sense. Now, I don't know what a contract like this would look like. I don't. Fernando, I see your, let's see. Okay, who is better? Thank you for donating, by the way. Who is better at it, Broncos or Titans? By at it, what do you mean by that? Who is the better team? Who's better set up? Because right now, I don't know. I think both teams are kind of in a weird spot right now. Jake, OBJ over Woods on a prove-it deal. I kind of feel like, I would probably go with OBJ, just because I think he differs from Robert Woods. I think Robert Woods is very similar to what they have currently on the roster. But I love them both. It's not like I dislike Robert Woods. I love Robert Woods. But I mean, I don't think that the Rams are going to get Robert Woods. I said that in a previous video. But yeah, Taylor Lewan, as mentioned by Billy here, in 2018, Lewan signed the biggest contract in history for an offensive lineman at $80 million deal. Yeah, he at one point or another was one of the top guys, and maybe he still is, but there are some injury concerns later on in his career. He's now gotten into his 30s. You can come back from that. You absolutely can, but it makes it harder. So the question is, do you want to go out and get a 31-year-old to start? He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. Do you want to get a 31-year-old who hasn't played half of the games in 2 of the last 3 seasons, who has played over 100 games in his career? He's a veteran presence. You have to start there. Do you want to bring him in? Period. Regardless of money, is there a fit here? And I think regardless if you like him or not, there's a fit. There's definitely a fit. I mean, you could say what you will, and I love Alec Jackson. Love Alec Jackson. But, it's not a guarantee he plays left tackle. He could play left guard. Like, he still could start even if he doesn't play left tackle. So there's definitely a fit for Lewan. And then you kind of get into the thick of, okay, what could that look like? What would that contract look like? I mean, in all honesty, what would a left tackle be getting paid at this point in the game? Age 31. He's played 2 of the last 3 seasons, not even half of the games he's missed. So what would that look like? And so I'm going to turn over to a 33-year-old coming from Arizona in Kelvin Beachum, 11-year vet, right? He has a calculated market value on Spotrac at $3.7 million average annual, okay? That, I think, is a little too low for Lewan's name, right? So then you look at Orlando Brown Jr., and this guy's 26 years old, $22.4 million is his average annual calculated market value, okay? That's too high. That's not going to be Lewan. So Lewan, in my opinion, what we're looking at, because he's going to go down a peg, I think, we're probably looking, I'll say a max $12 million for 1 year. Is that even feasible for the Rams? I don't know. I'm going to say this. I think the Rams should be interested. I think they should kick tires, but I don't think you have to dive into that swimming pool. I don't. I think it makes more sense to continue to develop Alec Jackson than trust a guy who he's missed in 2 of the last 3 seasons. He's missed more than half of the games. That's kind of where I'm at on that. Bowles at left tackle and Jackson at left guard would be mean. I agree. And thank you again for donating. Really appreciate that. So, I don't know, man. I think when you look at Lewan, he has a lot of things that you like. I'm just very concerned about his injury history. You can say, oh, it's no big deal. Guys come back from it all the time. I'm not worried about his age. I'm not necessarily worried about one injury. But when you look at it, 2 of the last 3 years, like I said, that's a real thing, okay? I like the guy. I do. But there are other options out there. Maybe you look at, some other guys. You look at through the draft. Maybe you look at Mike McGlinchey. Can he play left tackle? I don't know. But $14.8 million is his calculated market value. You'd be getting a younger guy at 28 years old. But realistically speaking, you don't even have to go crazy. You don't have to break the bank this offseason. You really don't. I mean, that's kind of the thing. How about George Fant? 30-year-old with the Jets. He's not as sexy, right? It's not a big, sexy name. It's not, George Fant. Like, no one's, going crazy for George Fant. But, I watched a lot of Jets games, as you guys know, since I cover the Jets on this channel to a degree. And, I'll just say this right now. George Fant, same offensive coordinator, would have that familiarity there. We've already mentioned on this show the idea of going out and getting Mike White as the backup to Stafford. George Fant, in my chat, in my opinion, I just read chat and it totally threw me off. In my opinion, George Fant could make some sense. He's played left tackle. He's played right tackle. He can play guard. I think he's more so a right tackle, but I do think he could play left, and I think he would give you some upside there. He signed a 3-year, $27 million deal with the New York Jets in 2020. I would say he's coming off somewhat of a down year. I think his value is kind of right around where Spotrac has him, calculated market value at $3.3 million average annual. So I think when you factor that in, they're looking at a market value of 2 years, $6.6 million per season. I'm not going to lie, or $6.6 million total. I'm not going to lie. The Rams should consider doing that. Like, if this is actually a chance, I think the Rams might be better off going after a George Fant at 2 years, $6.6 million with a $3.3 million average annual salary. I think that might make the most sense for the Rams. And maybe we're not talking about Lewan. Lewan is going to be expensive. Like, he might not be super expensive. He's not going to be Orlando Brown-esque because he's 31 and, he's missed 2 of the last 3 years. He's missed more than half of the games. But I don't know. I think he's going to be genuinely expensive, being the fact that it's Taylor Lewan. People know who that is. He's well known. George Fant, he played 8 games this past year, played 15 the year before, 14 the year before, 16 the year before that, 16 the year before that, and 14 the year before that. So he's relatively healthy. Last year he got banged up a little bit, and I think it did hurt his stock a little bit as a free agent. I don't know if the Jets will bring him back, but, I like the fit. I like the fit for George Fant. I will say this, you heard it here on JE Live. I think George Fant makes more sense. And again, I know that's not what you probably wanted to hear. I know when you tuned in, you're probably like, oh, awesome, Jake's on the Taylor Lewan train. And to a degree, I am, if they could get him for cheap. But I don't think they're going to get him for cheap. Like Scott's saying here, I don't like Taylor Lewan as a fit here. Older side, injury prone, 2 ACL tears, 34 missed games in 4 years. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, So I don't know. I lean George Fant here because I feel like you got to go more value, right? And there's a connection. This is a real thing that could happen because there's a connection when you talk about bringing in LaFleur, who's the offensive coordinator for the Jets. And, he coached Fant. So that's something to keep in mind. There are some other guys here. We're going to go through some free agents. I just want to mention Orlando Brown. We already talked about George Fant, Mike McGlinchey. How about Isaiah Wynn, right? We talked about him during the trade deadline. Isaiah Wynn is a baller. He had some issues coming off an injury, but, I think he's an absolute stud. He's 26 years old. You could bring him in. He could be your left tackle, and it'd be about $15 million, I think, per year. So if you could afford that, I don't know. I mean, you get a guy at 26 years old, but that's something there. Isaiah Wynn is certainly a possibility this offseason. I'm not going to say that's what happens. Caleb McGarry is a free agent, from the Atlanta Falcons. He's going to be expensive. I don't really see him leaving. I think they'll probably tag him. The Patriots don't tag players normally, so I think that Isaiah Wynn is actually possible. Andrew Wiley of Kansas City. Kansas City can't tag everybody. Andrew Wiley is especially intriguing because of how well he played against a very, very good defense. Here's the problem, though. He's typically going to be a right tackle. The Rams have right tackle on lockdown when it comes to Rob Havenstein. So they're going to need a guy that can be a left tackle. I don't know if Wiley's the guy that I'm going to trust protecting my quarterback's blind side, but he's certainly an option there. Caleb McGarry, like I mentioned, I think is going to get tagged. And Isaiah Wynn is certainly possible, but he's going to take a lot of money. Like I said, I like George Fant. In a perfect world, the Rams had money, they'd be going after Orlando Brown Jr., no questions asked. Then how about Kelvin Beachum that we talked about earlier? Beacham's solid. He's not the best, but he's a solid plug and play guy. $3.7 million. I think he's more of a right tackle though. He did play left tackle, so we'll see. But $3.7 million is average annual according to Spotrac. It's not awful. Wouldn't mind necessarily dipping my toe into that. How about Jacksonville? Jawan Taylor. I don't know what they're going to do there. They got some pieces, behind him. So I don't know if they'll necessarily let him walk. This is a 25-year-old, just turned 25. He's a right tackle right now, but he could absolutely be left tackle. The Rams have a lot of experience getting guys from Jacksonville. I wouldn't be surprised necessarily, if he was an option. I think that would be very intriguing. He held his own at right tackle, and this is a guy that was once considered a really top prospect. So I don't know. Cameron Fleming, no, I wouldn't bother with him. Yosh Nijman, nope. And Jermaine Illuminor, nope. So those are the guys that are available as far as the ones that have market value on Spotrac. Other guys that are available at offensive tackle, like I mentioned, Taylor Lewan earlier, Cam Irving from Carolina, Brandon Parker on the Vegas Raiders. Andre Dillard becomes incredibly interesting. I would not mind if they could figure out a way to get Dillard relatively cheap. I would not mind that. Chris Hubbard for Cleveland is interesting. Calvin Anderson from Denver. I really like Calvin Anderson. I think that is a guy that I would definitely target, at least for some depth. Brunskill, although he shouldn't be listed as a tackle. He's more of an interior guy. Juwan James is another. Jason Peters is too old. He's going to be 42. I don't think so. There's a lot of guys here. I think the point is that the Rams will have some opportunities to go out and get some guys in free agency. If they want to bring back Ty Nsekhe, I think they should consider it. I thought he played extremely well last year, considering he was just thrown into the fire. He's age 37. I'd bring him back if he wants to be a backup. Would be relatively cheap. But then you have other guys, like I mentioned, Calvin Anderson's 26 years old, hasn't really gotten a chance to really flourish. So I think he'd be an option. Jawan Taylor, if I could have anybody, I think it'd be Isaiah Wynn, Jawan Taylor. It would be those two, really, because I like the idea of getting younger. So, that's that. Looking at guard, since everyone loves the offensive line, we'll stick with the offensive line free agency. Justin Pugh is a free agent. He's 32 years old, coming away from Arizona. Roger Saffold, he's going to turn 35 soon. He's a free agent. I actually have some market values according to Spotrac that I'll share with you. So we have Justin Pugh at $5.5 million per year. Then you look at over at Roger Saffold with the Bills, and he's $5.4 million per year. Keep in mind that Ryan Wendell just came over from the Bills. He has that familiarity with Saffold. The Rams obviously do. So, there's two reasons there why maybe he, takes a trip back to LA. You look at Isaac Sumalo, he's going to get paid out the wazoo. So probably not an option there. $12.1 million for Sumalo, who comes from the Philadelphia Eagles, was on that Super Bowl offensive line. Wes Schweitzer, I had to slow myself down before I butchered that. $13.8 million average annual market value according to Spotrac. Trey Turner of Washington, he is probably going to be relatively cheap at $2.6 million there. Let's see, Evan Brown of the Detroit Lions, fairly interesting there. Evan Brown is $10.8 million for the average annual salary there. Market value according to Spotrac, he's 26 years old. Probably not going to leave the Lions. I'd be shocked if they let him go. How about Dalton Reisner? This is a guy that if you follow Downtown Rams, Alex and I interviewed him. We've been a fan of him for a long time. Reisner clocks in at just below $10 million average annual. He's going to be a free agent leaving Denver. I think it would be really cool to grab him. He is a nasty player on the field. He has a mean streak. I really like Reisner. I think he showed you that he can be a really good player in this league over the course of his last couple of years. And, I thought he really developed. So, I really like him. Nate Herbig, I think somebody mentioned in the comments section. There it is, Garrett. Appreciate that. Nate Herbig is a guy that I think would make a lot of sense. Played for the Jets, played at a high level for the Jets. You bring him in, whether he starts at left guard, right guard, but he could start. That gives you that option there. Ode Abushi, I thought, he played well in limited reps. 2.1 million average annual, according to Spotrac. To me, that's a guy that the Rams should consider bringing back. Ibushi's 31 years old. I thought he was pretty solid last year. That's definitely a guy that I would be looking to bring back because he'll be relatively cheap. Then you got Nate Davis out of North Carolina, Charlotte. Look, we interviewed Nate Davis, really liked Nate Davis coming out of Charlotte, and I thought he played pretty well with the Titans. $7.4 million average annual, could play left guard or right guard. It's certainly an interesting guy there. There are a lot of guys in free agency here, just looking at it, that, you kind of have your pick of the litter, if I'm being honest. Ben Powers, another guy we interviewed, market value, 26-year-old, played at Oklahoma. He's, a free agent coming off of playing with the Ravens. We'll see what ends up happening with him. 9.4 average annual. So there are a lot of options here for the Rams. And you can say, a lot of these guys aren't really options. You could say a lot of these guys are going to be more expensive than maybe I'm letting it on or whatever. But, if you don't want those guys, Cody Ford is a free agent. He was once thought of as a top recruit or, a top prospect. Then you look over at a guy like Will Hernandez, who's also looked as a top prospect. So, maybe you see if your offensive line can get anything developed out of those guys. But, in my opinion, there's some really interesting pieces here. Roger Saffold, first and foremost, that connection there. You bring him in for a year. Does he do it, right? Then you look over, Trey Turner would be relatively cheap. Dalton Reisner would be great at 27 years old. Ode Ibushi should be back unless you can upgrade there. And then Nate Davis and Ben Powers, right in the 26, just moving into their prime. I think those guys are definitely, definitely guys that you should consider, I think, if you're trying to do that. So now we talked about guard. We talked about tackle. Now let's move into center, see if there's anybody here, just scouting out the market. I figured we haven't done this yet. So I'm kind of going off script a little bit, but I don't have a script ever, so that doesn't really make any sense. Connor McGovern, right? We got the market value here from Spotrac. Connor McGovern started for the Jets. There's a lot of talk about them letting him walk. 12.5 million average annual. The Rams would probably have to move some money if they wanted to sign him, but I do like McGovern, and they do have the offensive coordinator there. So, who knows about that one. Jason Kelsey's either retiring or staying with the Eagles. I'm not even going to bother with Jason Kelsey. He's not going anywhere. And if he were to go anywhere, he would go and play with Travis. He wouldn't. He would retire, stay with the Eagles, or play with Travis Kelsey. Garrett Bradbury, I don't think he's leaving the Vikings. He's 27 years old. 27-year-old center, 11.9 million average annual. I don't think he leaves the Vikings. Maybe they smack the... They slapped that franchise tag on him. I don't know. Bradley Bozeman at 28 years old, Carolina. I guess he signed a relatively short deal. I don't think I realized that. He signed a 1-year deal for $2.8 million. I wish I didn't see that. That's probably one of the best bargains of the entire offseason last year. I can't believe the Rams didn't get involved in that. Bradley Bozeman now $12 million average annual salary according to Spotrac. So we continue on with the centers here, and let's see, Ethan Pochik. I know people have mentioned him. I don't know. I think Nolan mentioned Ethan Pochik, if I'm not mistaken. He comes from Cleveland, $7.2 million. I mentioned him, I think, to trade for him at the deadline. If he was an option, I don't think he was really an option, but I was just kind of listing a bunch of guys that could be options. Then Aaron Brewer with the Tennessee Titans. He's going to be relatively cheap, I would say. Yeah, 5.4. Comes out of Texas State, undrafted in 2020. I like Aaron Brewer. I think at 25 years old, 3 years of experience, 5.4 average annual salary, he'd have a chance to really be the guy. And if the Rams want to make that move, I think it might make some sense. So those are some options. Anyway, those are some options at center, tackle, guard. I'm curious. Drop in the comment section below a player that you're now interested in, but you didn't know was a free agent or you didn't think about them before this video. because I want to see how much this video just helped you, or this live stream just helped you out with free agency. What's one player that I mentioned that you didn't even think about, and now you're like, shit, I kind of want them? Saffold? Pochik? Yeah, I thought so. Lamar Jackson. Let's get Taylor Lewan and Bobby Trees back pronto. I mean, I think they're both in play. Reisner for sure. Honestly thought he would be out of the Rams price range too. I mean, he still might be. Don't get me wrong. Those are just market values according to a website. That's pretty well informed, but you know. You know, I find myself saying this a lot. Yeah, I definitely find myself saying that a lot. Isaiah Wynn. Yeah, I think that'd be a good one. That doesn't surprise me at all. A well-liked veteran, won a Super Bowl. Doesn't surprise me. Wow, we have 118 people in here. It's 12:30 a.m. Appreciate you guys. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, like button also to further support this video. Have YouTube recommend this to everybody who's ever taken the platform. Yeah, I mean, here's my thing, Nolan, is that the Patriots just do not seem like a team that's willing to shell out the franchise tag, and definitely not this year, not where they're at. So they've let talent go for, you know, much better talent go in the past. I would love it. Isaiah Wynn was my first interview. Full disclosure, was my first interview at the Senior Bowl in person. It was my first ever in-person interview. I had never done an in-person player interview before. So, what's up, Brock? I always love that. No word except for the fact that I was told that the Rams could have interest in Robert Woods and Robert Woods could have interest coming back. What I'm going to say is what I said on my video in case you didn't see it. I don't think he comes back. I don't. I think he goes to a team where he can get the most out of his reps. He can get the most out of his production. I cannot see. I mean, I'm not going to say I can't see him going back to the Rams, but because they left everything pretty good. Like, it was a really smart idea if they wanted him back in case anything happened. It was really smart, and it looked really good from afar to trade him to a team you wanted to go to. They didn't just send him anywhere. They were offered more from other teams. He wanted to go to the Titans. They talked about it. They got him to the Titans. They took less for him to go to the Titans. So they did right by him, right? So because they did right by him, yeah, I think, you know, the bridge isn't burned, but you always have that in the back of your mind. Like, this team traded me away, you know? I don't know. I think when you look over at the Giants, even the Lions, I'd say the Lions too. I think the Lions are definitely in contention to get Robert Woods. I would say so. So, you know, I mean, that's really where I'm at. I'd say Lions. I'd say the Giants. I'd say Kansas City could be interesting, like Horned Hell just mentioned. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, you know, I could see a bunch of teams being interested. No. They're not. They are not trading Sewell. That's not possible. You know. No, I don't really see McCarron being. I wasn't really overly impressed with AJ McCarron. I know he had a nice comeback, but yeah, I didn't really like that. No. I would like to see either the Rams go out and get a backup like a Mike White, somebody cheap, or Baker comes back, or draft somebody. You got Bryce Perkins. You know, I think Bryce Perkins, you have him battle it out in camp with somebody else, but I'm not about to get AJ McCarron. quite honestly, I'm not overly impressed with the quarterbacks in the XFL so far. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of Kyle Sloter. You know, he's not even getting a chance to play, and I think he's the best in the league. But, you know. Let's see. I don't think so. No, it's probably something. I mean, they're not going to take his 5th-year option up, but probably something. Maybe they trade him at the deadline or something, but they're not going to do that right now. Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, Garrett. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a receiver this year. Like, Van Jefferson is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. You got Cooper Kupp, who's locked in stone. You got Tutu Atwell, you feel good about, but you always have to worry about the injury, right? You know, he isn't built to withstand like serious punishment. So you've had injuries in the past in the wide receiver room. I don't think you're guaranteed. And then, you know, Benny Sco dealing with the injury at the end of the year. You know, Van Jefferson is going to be a free agent after the year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up adding another receiver via the draft. You know, and then you look at Robert Woods and you look at, you know, Allen Robinson. Robert Woods, I mean, he's had some injury issues, you know, recently. You know, Allen Robinson dealt with a foot. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and they got Robert Woods or OBJ or whatever. I think they are going to add another receiver, though. I don't think they're sold. They're definitely not sold on McCutchen being, you know, a serious guy in the rotation, no matter how much of a fan favorite he was. And I like McCutchen, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. Essentially, McCutchen is not going to be one of the guys in the rotation. And then you look over at, you know, what's his name? Jacob Harris, and I don't think he's going to get much of an opportunity. He had a hard time cracking the rotation last year, and that was the best chance he was going to get. So to me, I'm kind of out on Jacob Harris long term. I don't think that there's much of a future there at wide receiver. Maybe tight end, but he seems like a guy that they just want to keep on special teams, and it just isn't working out, whatever. I'm rooting for him. I hope he proves me wrong, but right now it just doesn't seem great. And then, you know, with Skoranek, the injury, you have to monitor that. I don't know if they'll bring back Fan. So, you know, I think there's a very good chance that they sign or trade for a receiver or just do both, because you can never have too many receivers, as we've learned. Let's see here. The Boogeyman trailer looked great. Move by Disney to release it in theater instead of Hulu. Yeah, the Boogeyman trailer looked pretty good. I actually want to see that. Looks like a good remake. I think The Exorcist comes out in October, so I'm looking forward to that as well. That's funny. That is funny. You want Jalen Ramsey? Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. Okay, if he's traded, you're gonna have to give up quite a bit, and I don't think the Rams are trying to trade Jalen Ramsey in the NFC. Like, if the Rams trade Jalen Ramsey, if they trade him, it's going to be an AFC team. It's not going to be a team in their conference. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to be a team in their conference. It's not going to be a team they could potentially be playing in the NFC Championship game. You don't trade the best cornerback in the league, but you definitely don't trade the best cornerback in the league to a team that you could be playing in the NFC Championship game. I just, that would not make any sense. There are a lot of Lions fans hoping for Ramsey. I would say I'd be hoping for Robert Woods. I'd be hoping for a guy like that. Ramsey, I don't think is an option at all. I just don't. Like I said, you know, I'm not saying Ramsey won't get traded. I still find it hard to believe that they would do that. If they do that, they definitely have their reasonings. It probably, you know, probably what happens if they have to trade Ramsey, it's that Ramsey wants a new deal. The Rams are struggling with the cap the way it is, and Ramsey just saw Donald get his deal. and all these other guys get their deals, and so he wants his deal remade as well. And he's probably going to want out if so. And I don't have any info on this. I don't know if it's a deal thing or whatever. But I think the only way to get to the point where you have to trade Jalen Ramsey is if you can't come to an agreement on a new deal. And if that's the case, then that's the case. But it almost didn't seem like Jalen wanted to get traded to begin with, and he's just like kind of rolling with the punches. I don't know, but either way, they're not trading him to an NFC team. It's just not happening. No offense, there are 49ers fans in here. Probably at least one of the 140 people in here, one of you is a 49er fan. And if that's the case, I'm not talking about you. But the idiot 49er fans in my mention on Twitter that want to keep putting Jalen Ramsey in these god-awful 49ers threads and Photoshop him in there and say, oh, he's going to be a Niner. No, they're not cutting Jalen Ramsey. It's not happening. They're not cutting him. You cut him. Now, all 31 teams except for you have a chance at him, so that's not happening. You also don't get any compensation for the best cornerback in the NFL. That's not happening. I don't know where that came from. That is not realistic. It's not possible. You couldn't get away with that. There would be a riot. I mean, LA fans would go berserk. It's different with Todd Gurley. Gurley didn't have a great year. Gurley, there was the injury risk. Jalen, there's no injury risk. Jalen's not about to retire, and Jalen didn't have as bad of a year as everyone else is saying. He actually had a pretty good year, and I think PFF had him in the top 5. Not that they're the Bible or anything, but he's not getting released. So if he gets traded, it's going to be the AFC. But if he gets if he doesn't get traded, he doesn't get traded. And I'm honestly at the point where I don't think he's going to get traded. I think it's a lot of hearsay. I think they're working on something in the background, trying to get his deal worked out. Again, I have no knowledge on this, but that's what I think. If I'm making a prediction, it's that Jalen wanted to get his contract reworked. The Rams had kind of played a little bit of hardball, and so Jalen and his agent are kind of leaking stuff to Jalen might get traded and all that, and he's kind of going with the flow on Twitter. No, I think they'll figure it out. To me, he has to be the focal point of what you build your defense around, because Aaron Donald has 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? Aaron Donald is constantly talking about retirement or just like messing around with it or whatever. It's always up in the air with him. I can't assume that he's going to be back after the season, okay? So if Aaron Donald retires, I need to have a face of this defense. And who is that face? It's going to be Jalen Ramsey, okay? And we already saw that face come to life. When Aaron Donald was on the sidelines, the Rams actually had the reasoning. They had the realization that as great as Aaron Donald is, the fact that even though he is the best player, in the league, whatever, Aaron Donald on the sideline, the Rams still played some solid defense. And that's because they had playmakers like Jalen Ramsey, like a Bobby Wagner, right? Greg Gaines playing at a high level. So what happens if you lose Aaron Donald right after you trade Jalen Ramsey this year? Donald retires. What happens then? Now you don't have that. See, if you don't have the pass rush and you don't have Donald, so the pass rush isn't as good, you don't have that pass rush, now your corners have to be better. It's not that it's impossible to win without a pass rush. It's that your corners have to be really good. There's a way fewer margin for error, after that. So that's the thing, okay? But here's the thing, though, okay? If that's the case, so if they keep Ramsey, right? Or they don't keep Ramsey, they trade Ramsey, Donald retires. Now you're in trouble because you don't have a pass rush and you don't have, your corners. How are you going to, you don't replace Ramsey. You don't replace Donald. You don't. There's not going to be a player they come across that replaces Ramsey. There's not going to be a player that they come across anytime soon that replaces Donald. They are not replaceable players. You can put guys in position where they once were, but that's not replacing them. You're not going to replace that talent. You're not going to replace the all-around desire of a cornerback like Jalen Ramsey. You're not going to replace that. And you're not going to replace the work ethic and the overall dominance of Aaron Donald in the trenches. You're just not going to do it. So, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, Jalen might get traded, and it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal. Like, if Jalen Ramsey gets traded, that's a problem. And I always say this, and people are like, that's ridiculous. Like, I would never say this and whatever. But no. It's a real big problem, and I would say this. If the Rams had to decide between trading Jalen Ramsey and trading Aaron Donald, I would choose Aaron Donald every time. Aaron Donald, we don't know how much longer he has. I mean, I think the guy honestly could play until he's 40, but I don't think he has the desire to play until he's 40. You know? And so that's my thing, okay? I don't think he wants to play that much longer. Jalen has shown no signs. I mean, Aaron Donald has shown no signs of slowing down, right? I'm not saying he has. But Aaron Donald has already shown you that, hey, retirement's on his mind. So much so, like, he's been messing around with the idea of it, right? He's been, whatever he's doing on social. But Jalen does not want to retire. He's never mentioned anything like that. He's nowhere near retiring. He's younger. That's not the guy I'm trading away. I'm trading away the guy that has one foot out the door. That's what I would be trading away. But I'm not trading either away because this team still can win a Super Bowl. This team can get back. This team can run it back just a year late. They can do that. But you're not going to do that if you start trading away guys like Jalen Ramsey just because you can't, figure that out. Figure it out. I don't think saving, $14 million, trading him away is worth not having him. I don't. He played all 17 games last year. You don't know what it's like to not have Jalen Ramsey on this team. You don't. You have no idea. Because Jalen Ramsey played all 17 games last year, but we did get a little bit of an idea of what it's like to not have Aaron Donald. And to be honest with you, I thought Raheem Morris did a great job keeping it all together. You saw guys step up. Whether that's UDFA out of Cincinnati, Marquise Copeland, who will most definitely be brought back for this year. He's an exclusive rights free agent. He'll be back. Greg Gaines, A'Shawn Robinson, they stepped up. When Donald was out, they stepped up. Were they as dominant as Donald? No. But they were good enough where now you have Jalen Ramsey, you have Troy Hill, you have Jacoby Durant playing the way he is at the end of the season. All of a sudden, look at this. Defense is pretty solid, even without Aaron Donald. I mean, if you told us this in 2020, well, that was not the case because you watched the Packers game and, well, the playoff divisional round. I always say this. I don't mean to be a jerk. Brandon Staley's defense folded like a damn lawn chair when Aaron Donald was hurt. Folded. Done. Raheem showed you that, okay, these guys can still play. We can work around this. No Donald, we can still figure this out. They did. They had a better offense. They probably would have won most of those games. But, yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. I see this a lot, and I just don't think that those guys on TV really follow the Rams. I don't. I think they're told, they're given bullet points, and I'm sure, they make their show and whatnot, but they cover all 32 teams in the NFL. They cover all 30 teams in the NBA, and, they cover all the teams in the NHL and the MLB and all that, whatever. I mean, I got to give them a little bit of a pass because to have to cover every single team is hard. So I understand that with Nick Wright, but to sound so sure of yourself and be that wrong, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't get the blowing up. I think it's just people that don't understand. I just think it's people that don't understand the whole deal. Everyone's like, oh, rent's due or, payments due. They have to pay their dues, all that. I mean, they can keep this going. They can. I'm not saying it's the smartest thing. I'm not saying it's not like they shouldn't start actually paying their debts, but they can keep this going. They don't have to blow it up. They're way too talented. They have way too much talent to just blow it up. And all these people are acting like they weren't hurt all year. Like their offensive line wasn't decimated. Like they weren't winning games early on in the year with 3 of their 4 starting corners out. let me have you take a guess at which one of those 3 out of the 4, which one of those corners was healthy. It's Jalen Ramsey, of course. Shocker. Mr. Reliable. You know, I don't know. I would not trade Jalen Ramsey. I wouldn't really trade anyone at this point unless it's Boom or Allen. But I don't know. I don't know how much they're going to do with their offensive line. It's going to be very fascinating. There are different things that they can do. I don't know what they're going to do. It is worth mentioning, by the way, going back to what I was saying about the interior and the guys that they could sign, like a Dalton Reisner, all those guys. Keep in mind, those signings count against the compensatory pick formula. So that's the benefit of signing a guy, not advocating like this should be the move, but playing devil's advocate and, both sides of the coin. That is the good thing about the Lewan and Robert Woods move, because if you sign a guy like that, it doesn't hurt your compensatory picks. If you sign Reisner, if you sign Wynn, if you sign any of those guys, they hurt your compensatory pick formula. They count against it. So it is something to keep in mind, moving forward. But yeah, just that's a lot. It's a lot to talk about. I thought Ramsey would have wanted to play with Goff again if cut or something. I don't know what their relationship was in LA. I don't think Ramsey really cares. I think he probably has some respect for Jared Goff, but Ramsey is not, he's not getting released. So, I would definitely Lions Mania. I would definitely start, thinking about other things because, don't get your hopes up. I'd hate to see Lions fans getting all hyped that they're going to get Jalen Ramsey and then they end up not getting Jalen Ramsey, because that's what's going to happen. But I just don't agree with that, Nathan. Like, when I watch the tape, I see Jalen Ramsey not getting exposed, not regressing, getting no help from the back end of his secondary with safeties. I mean, I felt like we saw more out of Quentin Lake and Russ East in the last few games of the year than I saw it at Taylor Rapp at most points of the season and Nick Scott. I don't think Scott played all that well this year. I know there are people that love him, and I like his story. I like the fact that he was a special teams ace at Penn State, was drafted in the 7th round, worked his way up the rungs. But these guys, Nick Scott and Taylor Rapp, weren't really helping Jalen Ramsey over the top. And Nolan knows how I feel about this because we've talked about this. Ramsey does so much for the secondary. And to Rams fans that want to let him go, there were Rams fans that wanted to cut him. To the Rams fans that want to let him go, let me just remind you, when you see fan bases of every single team, there's the fan base going crazy about trading for Jalen Ramsey. When you see that, at any point, does that register in your brain that maybe there's a reason for that? Like maybe probably shouldn't get rid of a guy like that? I'm just saying, you need to realize Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the NFL. He didn't have that much of a down year. He had a down year to his standards, but he didn't, really falter, right? He didn't fall off. Find me a cornerback that's willing to not make a career decision, go out and make the tackle, spear the guy like he's a linebacker, make a big play. Find me a cornerback that wants it, that loves contact. Find me a cornerback that can play linebacker, can play safety, can play corner. Like, find me a cornerback that can be all over the field, that can cover tight ends and wide receivers and running backs, etc., that can blitz, that can be a game breaker at the end of games. Look at how much of a closer Ramsey was at the end of the Falcons game. The Rams do not win that game without Jalen Ramsey. Going over the top and picking off that Mariota throw, they don't win without that. So I feel like Ramsey's being underrated a little bit by the Rams fan base. And that's exactly what I'm saying, Nathan. It's his supporting cast. And by the way, when Ramsey started to play at his best, that's when Quentin Lake, Russ Yeast, Jacoby Durant, and Troy Hill got healthy. Think about that. When Ramsey started to look the best he's looked this year, it was when Jacoby Durant was healthy and he was getting some, experience and starting to really come on strong. You had Troy Hill got back. You had the rookies in Quentin Lake and Russ Yeast playing. That's when he started to come alive. Now, Taylor Rapp was still playing. Don't get me wrong. I thought Taylor Rapp's play got better towards the end of the year. So I don't know what that was, but I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Go and watch the tape. Jalen Ramsey at the end of the year was vastly different than the middle of the year. I'm not necessarily advocating that Russ Yeast and Quentin Lake should be thrown into the fire as the starters next year. I think Jordan Fuller will be the starter next year, one of the starters when he comes back from the injury. I think if the team was competing and they were, winning games, I think Jordan Fuller would have been back earlier. But I think it got to the point where they're like, this is a guy who's had an injury. He had he had a really serious injury last year when Mike McGlinchey decided to sit on his leg and snap it, his ankle. He had a really serious injury last year, but really what it comes down to is that they weren't winning games. There's no reason to throw a guy out there that's had injury issues. Just move on to next year. So I think Jordan Fuller starts, and then one of Quentin Lake and Russ Yeast maybe start at safety. Maybe they go out and they get a safety in free agency. There's definitely options out there if you can afford it. And then there's also guys in the draft. So, we'll see there. Awesome. I love almost losing my voice there. Where I could have sworn. Don, thank you so much for donating. What do you mean? You will play for 400K. Yeah, I think we all would. Gammon, thank you. Appreciate you donating. I'll offer three third rounders. Yeah, wouldn't be enough. See, and to trade him to the Niners, to trade Jalen to the Niners, I would need about 6 first rounders to do that because of how much of a pain that is. 6 first rounders and you got a deal. I'd probably do it. I haven't heard any contract restructuring being in the works, but I'm sure that's certainly possible. I'm sure that's very likely, honestly. He's like a 97 Madden. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, bring back John Johnson III. I'd be all for that. Hockey, my second favorite. I don't know if I have a second favorite sport at this point in my life. Football's my number one, and I think I like basketball, hockey, and baseball equally right now. And I say right now, when Yankees are back on for me, I think I'm really back into baseball. So I think I'm really going to be able to enjoy it. I'd probably say basketball, hockey, baseball, but maybe hockey. I don't know. I think college basketball is better than the NBA personally. I enjoy it way more, and I don't know. Maybe just because I'm a Kansas Jayhawk fan. I guess it's not easy for everyone, but yeah, I don't know. I like college basketball more. I like NFL more than college football. I don't watch college baseball and I don't watch college hockey, but respect both. And I watch hockey. But yeah, I'm a Vegas Knights fan, and as you can see, I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. The origin of this, I was actually a Red Wings fan. I picked them when I was 4 years old because my favorite color is red, and my dad wanted to play, NHL 98 so badly, or NHL 99. So, he was the Avalanche. I was the Red Wings. He didn't really have a direction in hockey. He was a Kings fan growing up in Irvine, California. And then he kind of got out of hockey later on. So because of that, I never had like a path. Like my dad likes the Jayhawks, I like the Jayhawks. My dad likes the Rams, I like the Rams. My dad likes the Yankees, I like the Yankees, right? So I never had that path with hockey. And, I loved the Red Wings for a while and was really enjoying it. Like Mike Babcock, great coach. Pavel Datsyuk was my favorite. I liked Cronwall and, Zetterberg and, they had all these young prospects too. That's the thing about the Red Wings is that I was watching them and I'm like, they're an older team. They're fun to watch. They're really good, but they got guys like, Gustav Nyquist and Anthony Mantha and just guys I was really excited about, their future. And I just felt like they ruined their future. Like they ruined everything. When they traded away Datsyuk, it pissed me off. I don't feel like they did him any sort of justice, just shipping him away like he was nothing. They started trading away. They never gave Peter Mrazek a shot to start over Jimmy Howard, who I just thought was an overrated goalie. To make a long story short, I got out of hockey and honestly I got out of the Red Wings. So I just got over it. And then essentially, right around whenever Vegas started, I want to say 2017 is when the Vegas Golden Knights became a thing. Yeah, 2017, I want to say. I visited Vegas. And I had already decided even beforehand I was going to be a Vegas Golden Knights fan because it was the first opportunity, at least that I could remember, where I was alive at the start, the inception of a brand new team. So I jumped right on their bandwagon that did not exist before they even had players. I made a mock expansion draft. It was really fun. I had guys picked out that I wanted them to go and grab. And they got themselves a really good roster with some trades and all that. So really, I've enjoyed following them. I have a bunch of Vegas Knights jerseys, a bunch of them. I mean, I got, Carlson, I got Marchessault. I don't have Eichel. I need to get Eichel, but, I got a bunch of them like Shea Theodore, Nick Waugh, all sorts of guys, right? I had Pat Chiaretti, which is no longer current because he got traded away in the offseason. I did not like that move. But anyway, I have a lot of Vegas Knights jerseys. But with the Devils, right? So the Devils, the reason I'm a fan of them is because right before COVID, my friend Kyle, who is a big Devils fan, diehard Devils fan, started to take me to games. I'd go with him to, the Devils games, and they were really cheap because they weren't very good. Right. So, we would be going to those games and first game, I'll never forget. First hockey game I ever saw, professional hockey game. It was the Devils. So I wasn't a fan of the Devils at the time. It was the Devils versus the Vegas Knights. Right. So my favorite player on the Knights was Marchessault, and I had his jersey on. The dude had a hat trick. So my first ever NHL game, my favorite player gets a hat trick, and they win the game in overtime. And it was like the best introduction to hockey. So, I have that introduction to hockey. I get into it, all that. I'm really excited, everything. And then over time, obviously I haven't seen Vegas since because I live on the East Coast, but over time, I've been going to Devils games, and I've been to like 6 so far, 6, 7, something like that. I've lost count. But I've grown to like them over the years, and it's cool because I got into them before this renaissance of Devils hockey. And I've always respected the Devils from afar, but I've been a fan for, I'd say, about 2 years now, 3 years, maybe, probably 2. So before they got good, essentially, I became a fan, and I've been following them. And Jack Hughes was a guy it took me a little bit to get into. Like I liked Kyle Palmieri. They traded him away. I liked that. Anyway, I like certain players on the team. Like there were guys that came over that I watched, even with like Tomas Tatar is really cool because I watched Tatar when he was on the Red Wings. So it was like that was my first team. So the fact that Tatar is back on a team that I root for, it's really cool. I liked a lot of the guys. I've become a really big fan of Dawson Mercer. He's a young player, but it took me a little bit to get to really like Jack Hughes. And then I don't know, I just started to absolutely love the guy. And just every night, he became my favorite player. I think right now, currently, he'd be my favorite player in the league. I just got a pretty awesome reverse retro jersey. It's just essentially what I've been doing, as a hockey fan. I've been following them like crazy. I wanted to go to a game actually today actually. He wanted me to go with him. I unfortunately can't, but man, I want to go back and see a game. I saw a game earlier this year, early on. The Devils played Seattle and they won. So yeah. Actually, I'm sorry. I think the Devils played the Sharks. I think they played Seattle last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. It's kind of crossed. I've lost track. I think they played the Sharks this year. Might have been Seattle and the Sharks last year, but either way, it's been fun going to those games. It's made me a fan. So, he is something special. He's just built different, man. He's just built different. And when I watch him, just the fact that, Jack Hughes is not afraid to make that extra pass. He's not afraid to, even if he doesn't get the assist, he sets guys up. He doesn't get the goal. He sets guys up. He really can do it all. And when I watch him as opposed to anybody else, aside from say Connor McDavid, Jack Hughes is one of the fastest guys on the ice every single night. It's incredible. When I watch him, he plays faster than everybody. Like I said, except for Connor McDavid. Right now, I think he's on a path to be honestly one of the best players in the NHL. I mean, he already is, but I think he has a chance to be on the level of McDavid over time. That's what I would say. NHL 3s on PlayStation. Interesting. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, Connor McDavid is incredible. I'm also a big Leon Draisaitl fan. I liked Edmonton for a little bit. I realized I kind of liked him a little too much at times. And, this is what happens when you don't have, a hockey following, your whole life. You just kind of have to make it up as you go. But every other sport, your father kind of raised you to like a team. You kind of go free reign. And so I think that's really what I've done. Because I don't really have second and third favorite teams in other sports. I have teams that I respect. I have teams that I like, but I wouldn't say I'm a fan of. The Jets I like. When you cover a team an entire year and you watch all their games, yeah, I think it's easy to like them. Obviously I watch pretty much every game, but, with the Jets, it's more in depth, so to speak. You grow to like them. Baseball, couldn't care less about any other team except for the Yankees. The thing about the NBA to me is, when you look at it, I'm a Laker fan, but I also like my Jayhawks. I'm very loyal to my Kansas Jayhawks. So, Josh Jackson, wherever he is, or, Andrew Wiggins, being on Golden State, Joel Embiid being on, the 76ers, guys like that, Abaji on the Jazz, and Brown, however you pronounce his name, Christian Brown on, the Nuggets. I root for my Jayhawks, whenever Devontae Graham finally got out of New Orleans. He's on San Antonio and actually doing stuff. I root for my Jayhawks. I root for the Lakers. There are teams in the past, I did like Memphis for a little bit, not as a favorite, but I really like Ja Morant. I still I stand by what I said. I thought Ja Morant was the better prospect than Zion Williamson. People laughed at me, but I was like, Morant's the better prospect. He's going to be around longer. He doesn't get hurt all the time. He does have a little bit of an injury history, but keep in mind, this guy gets hurt, he misses 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. Zion gets hurt, he plays 25 games a year. Like, he looks like the next Kawhi Leonard. So, that's that. Connor Bedard, I hear he's the next can't miss NHL prospect, and I might give the Sharks another go if they win the worst team sweepstakes, LOL. Plus, I do miss Sharks gear. So right now, as a Devils fan, I'm hoping the Sharks will trade Timo Meier to the Devils for not asking for Dawson Mercer. Like, if they trade him to the Devils and, they get, I don't know, prospects, picks, things like that. Yeah, I guess he is. I was actually very high on Cal Peterson, and then he just fell off. And I think that's it's something I've noticed. Like, goalies tend to fall off at times. It's kind of weird. I mean, Cal Peterson looked like an absolute stud. Looked like he was going to take over for Quick, and he didn't. Like, it just didn't happen. What pro sport helps a player transition to another pro sport? Example, a tall basketball player wouldn't easily transition to a soccer player, even goalie. That's a great question. I think, Mary, when you look at like sport in general, I think a tight end, transferring to basketball, or basketball player transferring to a tight end. I think, in football, I think that's probably the best transition, if I'm being honest. Baseball players, infielders to quarterbacks, I kind of like that too, but that's normally that. Yeah, NHL sounds, just like crazy. If you're not into it, like, I've been that person in the room where people are like, oh yeah, this guy and this guy and this guy, Nikita Kucherov, yeah, like Braden Shen and Braden Point, guys like that. You just are like, I don't know. But yeah, no, I'm pretty well in tune now. But if you asked me 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Bruins are absolutely filthy. It pains me to say that, but if the Devils want to win it all this year, and they are pretty much playing with house money because no one thought they'd be this good. They're number 3 in the NHL right now. And Vegas is actually number 1 in the West, but they'd be number 7 in the East if they were in the East. So, when you look at the Bruins, I mean, they're just so dominant. I think they're like 10 ahead of second place, 10 points. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So, yeah, they're killing it. They're absolutely dominant. Bad timing with Peterson and Quick, both falling off a cliff around the same time. Glad Cal is back in the AHL with the Kings, so he might not be done yet. Yeah, I mean, it could honestly be a tale of what happened with Peter Mrazek. I mean, we've seen him kind of all over the NHL, but Mrazek was this like stud, young, up-and-coming goalie. And basically what ended up happening is the Red Wings kind of slow played it, and they didn't want to give him the nod. And keep in mind, this is back when hockey didn't go alternate. Like, it was like the same goalie every night. Now you have the alternating goalies, whatever. But it felt like the same goalie every night. And Jimmy Howard always would do it, whatever. But I liked Mrazek more. I thought Mrazek was better, and I think they slow played it with Mrazek. I think they hurt his development, and they kept Jimmy Howard forever, and it just, it didn't work out well for them. 100 points? Probably. Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't even know right now if I look at the NHL standings. I'm bad with like remembering points off the top of my head. Right now, the Bruins have 91 points, which is ridiculous. Yeah, the Devils have 79 right now, and the Hurricanes have 84. The Hurricanes are annoying the shit out of me. They're really good. Vegas is in the lead for the West with 73 points. The Stars are in second with 72, and the Jets are tied with the Kings, your LA Kings, 71. But it's an absolute dogfight. And if anybody wants to get in the NHL, this is the time to do it, because it's going to be a lot of fun. There's all these teams that are in it. You talk about the Stars, the Jets, the Avalanche, the Wild. Then you look at the Knights, the Kings, the Kraken, the Oilers, the Flames are still in it. So, I mean, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got about 10 teams still in the mix in the West. And then you look over at the East and you got the Bruins at 91. You got the Maple Leafs, you got the Lightning, you got the Panthers, you got the Red Wings to a degree, you got the Sabres, then, the Hurricanes, the Devils, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Penguins, the Capitals. So there's still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams. So there's 22 teams still alive, really, when you think about it, playoff contention. That's saying a lot. The league's wide open to an extent. I mean, obviously the Bruins are kind of running away. They're 7 points ahead of the Hurricanes now. They're on a tear, 43, 8-5. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Just such a great team. But yeah. Tampa, Boston. Yeah, I'd like to see a Tampa, Boston, like a Eastern Conference final. If the Devils don't make it, I think that'd be exciting. I don't really like the Hurricanes, so, nothing against them. I guess they're just annoying because they're winning a lot, but, I would really like to see the Devils get to the Eastern Conference Finals and see what ends up happening. The Western Conference Finals, that is up in the freaking air. I mean, Vegas is number one right now, but even as a Vegas fan, I don't look at this team and think this team is absolutely winning a Stanley Cup. I just don't. I mean, they'd be the seventh team in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, I don't know. Thoughts on Dylan Larkin? Yeah, I mean, I think I would extend Dylan Larkin. I love him. I think he is an outstanding player. He's not a guy I'm getting rid of. He's 26 years old. To me, he's the heart and soul of the Red Wings. He's the last player when I was following the Red Wings and they were my team. I followed that draft. He was the last player I really got invested in. So, I really like Dylan Larkin. I think that's a guy they need to build around, not get rid of him. He's their captain, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm not necessarily, I would definitely bring him back. Have a good one, LA Rams. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's my thing. I mean, I think that in college basketball this year, it's wide open. We saw tonight Alabama, right? Everyone's talking about Alabama, number 2 in the country. They beat South Carolina at the very end of that game. South Carolina is 10-18. I think my way too early prediction was Kansas and UConn, and I could still see it. UConn seems like one of those kind of, frisky type of teams that could really get under your skin come tournament time. They have a decent 3-point shooting team. It's going to be hard for Kentucky right now. They're 19-9. They're trying to claw their way into the tournament. Oscar Tshiebwe came back surprisingly. I thought he was going to go to the NBA, but he comes back and so it'll be interesting. I mean, I think this tournament is going to be outstanding. It's going to be a fantastic tournament. You got, the Syracuse Orange are a team to look out for potentially if they can make, the bubble because they always do well in the tournament. Clemson's looking good. They beat the Orange today 91-73. Tennessee is starting to fall off a little bit. Now, Tennessee just lost their 8th game. They lost to Texas A&M. The SEC is now starting to beat the crap out of each other. You got the Big 12 every single night. It is a dogfight. The Big 12, Kansas State beat Baylor by 10 tonight. Which, they were 14th, Baylor's 9th. Baylor's starting to kind of reel a little bit, so that's something there. It's just and then you look over at, Villanova and Xavier. I mean, that was a pretty big win for Villanova tonight, 64-63. Marquette beat Creighton 73-70, both ranked teams. Texas destroyed Iowa State. I don't know, man. This is going to be a crazy tournament, and I'm trying to see it. I'm trying to get tickets for it because they're coming to my neck of the woods. So for the first I think it's the first and second round will be in the Albany area. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. He definitely could be. I guess it really just depends on how the league values NFL, or NFL running backs, right? There's a lot of good running backs you can get the second, the third, the fourth. So I don't know, if he'll go where you would expect him to go, where he should go, but I could see it. Oh, that's awesome, Joe. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we love Dalton, and I can tell you off air, like he was pretty much the same guy you saw on the air. We talked a while afterwards. He complimented us. He was talking some really nice things about us, and he was saying that other prospects he's talked to really like what we do and have spoken highly of us. So yeah, just a really cool thing. You very rarely get complimented by the person you're interviewing, but he was saying the questions were fantastic and it was one of the best interviews he experienced. So yeah, I mean, I would love to have Reisner back, not back, but I'd love to have Reisner and Horns for sure. I'm in LA, no ties to hockey teams. Would it be better to go watch Ducks games or Kings games? I guess here's the thing. It really depends on the type of person you are, because right now, the Kings are better hockey. Let's just be honest here. The Kings are better hockey. If you're looking for better hockey, if you're looking for, hockey that is going to, matter essentially, the Kings are playing to make the playoffs. Like, they're probably going to make the playoffs. They're playing meaningful hockey. If you're looking for a team that, you don't really care whether they make the playoffs or not, the Ducks did just lose to the Kings, by the way. It was like 6-3, I think, the other night. But if you don't really care ultimately, about all that, then yeah, maybe you're able to enjoy the Ducks more. They're in last place. They're going to be getting a really good pick. They're literally in dead last place now I think about it. So yeah, I mean, if you want to, jump on a team, that might be the team to do it, because the Kings, they're good hockey. It'll be fun, but I think it's way more fun to jump on the bandwagon of a team that really no one should be jumping on the bandwagon of, right? You look at the Ducks right now in last place. They have 41 points. They're 17, 34, and 7. They're dreadful. So the reason I say that is because, Kings, they're gonna give you playoff hockey. That'll be great. But the Ducks, they're interesting because it's almost like you're starting your hockey journey, right? You're starting your hockey journey, who you're going to follow. Jump on the bandwagon of the underdog here, follow the draft, gets you into it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of young players. The Ducks are going to have a lot of talent. They're going to be able to trade these guys away. I think at some point, they'll turn a corner and it'll be a lot more fun. So, to answer your question, I think, Tyler, when you look at it, I think the Ducks make the most sense. But again, it depends on you. Do you want to sit through bad hockey development, just like waiting, or do you want to just dive right into winning hockey? Hockey where you're watching playoff hockey and the team's better. I mean, if you want the better team, the Kings are right there. They're actually 2 points away from Vegas out of first place in the Pacific. But if you want, hockey that's going to be more, it's going to take longer and it's going to feel more like a project, then yeah, I would root for the Ducks. I mean, just take it from me. I started with the Vegas Knights. I mean, they were great immediately, but I started with them before they were even a team. And then the Devils I got into when they were bad. So now that they're good, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, there you go. So, yeah, if you can deal with it, I'd go with the Ducks. I think that'd be exciting. And you got to keep me posted on that journey, because I really do think that would be exciting. And you got some young guys, because you got Zegras on that team. You got Troy Terry, you got Zegras, Henrique will probably get traded, I would imagine. Cam Fowler's a good player. Frank Vetrano. There's some guys that are like, they're older, they'll get traded, but you have some guys that I definitely really like, and Jamie Drysdale I don't think has played all year. Like, I think he's hurt, and he's 20 years old. He was their sixth overall pick in 2020. So they definitely have some core pieces, and then now you talk about getting the number 1 overall pick potentially. I don't know. Sounds like it could be some fun. Mason McTavish, the 3rd overall pick in 2021, he's starting to play. This year, he's played 57 games. He's had 13 goals, 19 assists. So I don't know. There's some guys that you'd be able to root for. Devils should add Patrick Kane. I don't know. I mean, it depends. How much would it cost? I wouldn't be necessarily against it as kind of a back option. But I just feel like you get a guy like Timo Meier. You get him at 26 years old. He's part of your core. He's part of, what you do now and what you do later. And that's the thing that gets me really excited about Timo Meier. He's already like one of the best wingers in the league. Like, he's fantastic. He's going to be a free agent. And the Sharks are trying to play hardball, but I'm like, all right, you play hardball. If you're going to try to make it hard for the Devils to make a trade, then fine. Devils will back out. They'll get a guy like you're mentioning, Patrick Kane or somebody like that, or they won't make a trade because they're playing with house money. They don't really need to. And then they'll lose, they'll get nothing for him. I mean, that's essentially what'll happen. Interesting. Yeah, I really like Jordan Addison. I think he's a first rounder, but I haven't really gotten to the receivers yet. I have a couple that I really like. Addison's one, and I absolutely love Jalen Hyatt. I really like Jalen Hyatt. I wouldn't mind it. I liked Mo Fox. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. They'd probably let him keep it, but that's funny that you say that. Very funny that you say that. I have not. Blaine, I think, mocked him to the Rams, so that he said that's a guy that is well-rounded, can make sense in special teams. I'll be watching Evan Hull soon. I'm watching all the running backs now, so. I want to get into hockey. Are the Kings fun to watch? Yeah. I mean, if you're, I'll say this right now. If you want to get into a team that's fun to watch, it's the New Jersey Devils. See it right here. Okay. The Devils have some of the fastest players on the ice that you can find in the league. They play this really fast-paced game. It's a lot of fun. They got one of the best players in all of hockey in Jack Hughes. They got a really good goalie in Vitek Vanacek. They got, they have some young players. Jesper Bratt. I really, really like watching them play. It's a lot of fun. And if you're looking for something that, you're looking for fun hockey, Devils are fun hockey. Actually, you guys that are Kings fans, or you guys that want to watch fun hockey, the Kings actually play the Devils tonight, this Thursday. So it is Thursday now, Thursday, February 23rd. They play tonight, Devils, Kings. I actually could have gone to that game. Shit. Yeah, they play tonight at the Rock. Devils are 16-11-2 at home. Kings are 15-10-5 on the road. It's going to be a hell of a game. Going to be a good one. Tickets are as low as $21. Oh, God, why did I have to see that? Yeah, Quinn Hughes is really... And don't forget about Luke Hughes. See, the Devils, they drafted Luke Hughes, and he's still in, he's still in college. So when Luke Hughes comes over, he's going to be a problem. I don't know. I'm excited. Anyway, man, I am getting tired. It is 1:30 on the East Coast. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Guys, I really appreciate it. Be sure to hit the like button, thumbs up button, subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. We're really starting to get our momentum there. Even in the off season, it can be tough to get subscribers, to build revenue, to get thumbs up, all that. But we're getting closer to 17.4K, and that helps a lot. Once we get halfway to 18K, that's always a lot of fun. Getting halfway to the next milestone, but we're getting there. So anyway, appreciate you guys, appreciate you sticking through my rants about hockey, about the Rams, etc. And I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks. You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today.